Hi everyone. Happy Friday. Sorry to miss you today. I'm down in LA hanging with my besties. Hope you're having a great day and I hope you have a wonderful long weekend. So, I wanted to give you a short lecture so you didn't miss any of the content when I was out. Um, I will put the bit.ly there so you all know how to access it. All the notes that you'll take in this video will go in the vocab section of your notebooks. And at the very end of this video, I'm going to explain the poster activity that you and your group are going to do, which is called Agents of Change. You're going to have 10 minutes to finish this in class next Wednesday. Remember, we have no school Monday. Alrighty, here we go. Today's lecture is another heavy one, but I'm going to try to keep it short and accessible for everyone. So our objective is I'll be able to define whiteness and white supremacy. So I want to do a little bit of norm setting. And again, we're not full class, but just as a reminder, we're all at different degrees of comfort when talking about race. No one wants to say the wrong thing. No one wants to sound racist. And there is nothing wrong with initial feelings of discomfort. Our goals in this class are to get curious about why you feel a certain way. I want you always to feel more comfortable asking questions, and if those questions need to happen after class, that's okay too. And I really want you to understand the difference between whiteness and white supremacy. So, to more accurately understand how race and its counterpart, racism, are woven in to the very fabric of society. So if you think of woven in, you think of like a blanket, and you think of how the strings or the yarn are woven or knitted together. So race and racism are woven or very embedded or a very big part of the founding of our society. So we need to explore the history of how race, whiteness, and anti-blackness came to be. So we've talked about race. We talked about that the last time we met. Today we're going to define whiteness. So this is what I would like you to write down in your vocab section. If you need to pause the video, please do so. Whiteness is when white culture is seen as the standard, what other cultures are compared to. We've looked at this through the lens of dominant narrative, but now we're giving another name to it. The next word we're going to look at is white supremacy. And I want you to think to yourselves, why do you think some people might feel angry when they hear or learn about the term white supremacy? So just take a moment to think about that. Okay. White supremacy, and this will go right underneath whiteness in the vocab section of your notebooks, is an ideology or a belief where white people are believed to be superior to non-white people. Here are some overt examples. And when I say overt, I mean pretty obvious. I mean above the iceberg, things that you can see easily. So above the iceberg, we have lynching, hate crimes, swastikas, burning crosses, the KKK, and racial slurs. Those are obvious examples of white supremacy. Then we have covert or less obvious examples of white supremacy below the iceberg. You all know by now that I love this iceberg metaphor and image to explain what things are obvious to the outside world above the iceberg and things that are not so obvious below the iceberg. So there are some examples of below the iceberg white supremacy. Some of these are pretty complicated concepts that we will get into. So I'm not going to go into detail now. But part of covert white supremacy is denying that racism exists, denying that race as a construct or the effects of race exist. That's known as colorblindness, the denial of white privilege, so on and so forth. So I'm going to leave you with that, but know that the obvious examples are what you think about when you hear white supremacy. Here's another way to look at it, and you can pause the video if you're interested in looking at this more. And again, if this is something you want to talk to me about, please do so. It's a little hard when I'm not here, but happy to share with you. And I don't agree with all of this. Like, for example, I think Confederate flags, in my opinion, would probably go into overt or socially unacceptable. But that's up for debate. So these are some examples of overt or obvious white supremacy that we might have seen. These pictures were taken in Charlottesville, Virginia several years ago. Okay. The KKK and neo-Nazis are a very scary form of white supremacists who are willing to fight and kill to spread their beliefs of white superiority and dominance. Adolf Hitler was an example of a white supremacist. This little girl, it's just so interesting. The sign says, "We want to keep our school white." They did not want the government to desegregate the New Orleans elementary schools in the 1960s. This is an obvious example of white supremacy. So some covert examples. So we watched a video similar to this before. What I'm going to have you do is pause the video, and then you're going to go on to my Canvas page, and I've actually linked this video for you so you can watch it. And I want you to be thinking to yourself, this isn't a very obvious example of white supremacy, but how is whiteness being used as the standard when this person is asked constantly, where is he from? So why is whiteness being used, or how is whiteness being used as the standard when this person is asked where he is from? And again, it's not the KKK, it's not Hitler, it's not the Nazis. It's a less obvious example. And again, you can access this video by pausing this one, going on to my Canvas page, going under Thursday and Friday, and you will see the link to this video.
Finally tonight.
In your notebooks, in your notebooks, in the same section, you can think about what is Peter Kim's definition of white supremacy. Okay, now what I would like you to do, you can switch and put this in your notes section, in your journal section, anything is okay. I would like you to answer these questions. What is your definition of whiteness? What is your definition of obvious white supremacy? What is your definition of not obvious white supremacy? And again, if you don't have a definition, use examples. And what's one new thing you learned or are interested by today? So pause the video and answer these questions. Again, this could be in the notes section or your journal section. So some key takeaways I want you to walk away with. As we know, race was created to justify enslavement and exploitation or taking advantage of others. This perpetuated or continued the dominance of white people, culture that we see today. So by white people putting themselves on a platform in order to put everyone else down, they created whiteness as the standard or as the dominant narrative. And even though we can't fix the past, this is the system we were all born into, we can now try to understand why inequality and why oppression still exist and actively work to repair and fight these injustices. So much of this class is being able to understand what happened and why, and learning how we can fight it together and on our own. So ignore the thing for the break because you'll take that after the video is over. I want to explain the next part of class. But again, you will get your break after you finish taking notes. So what does it mean to be an agent of change? Let's flip back to the vocab section of our notebooks. And this is going to be how I explain the poster activity you'll be finishing up class with. So I'm going to read this for you. You do not have to be me in order for us to fight alongside each other. I do not have to be you to recognize that our wars are the same, right? We don't have to be the same person, the same background, the same race, the same ethnicity in order to fight alongside each other. What we must do is commit ourselves to some future that we can include each other and to work toward that future with the particular strengths of our individual identities. Let's work towards a better future. I'll bring in my strengths, you bring in your strengths. Let's work together to fight this fight together. And in order for us to do this, we must allow each other our differences, racial, ethnic, so on and so forth. At the same time, we recognize our sameness as human beings. And this is a quote by author, activist, all-around hero, Audre Lorde. So back in that vocab section, I would like you to write the word agency. Agency is the ability for you to act independently and to make your own free choices. So for example, I have the agency to stand up for what I believe is right. And again, pause if you need to. I like thinking of agency as another way to say power. And we're going to look more into power next week. Nope, that's 2 weeks. We'll look more into power in 2 weeks. But that's how I like to think of it. You have agency, you have power to make changes. So what is interethnic solidarity? I'm just going to give you some images and some little bit of stories, and then I'll give you the actual definition. So the Third World Liberation Front, we looked at this at the beginning of the school year. You do not need to write this down, just listen to my explanation. A multiracial group, people from all different racial backgrounds, gathered at SF State in San Francisco and UC Berkeley in Berkeley and formed the Third World Liberation Front. What were they fighting for? The creation of ethnic studies, the creation of the Department of Ethnic Studies, and specifically to learn classes about their histories. So these groups, as you can see, fought alongside each other for the same cause. Dr. Martin Luther King and the Vietnam War protests. So as many of you know, Dr. Martin Luther King fought for civil rights here in the United States, but also he fought alongside and marched alongside other people to end the United States war in Vietnam because he was standing up for the people of Vietnam, saying we need to get our troops, our country out of there. So again, interethnic solidarity, thinking about what you think that means. This one is also really beautiful. This is Japanese Americans standing side by side with Central and South Americans. They are protesting against people who are seeking asylum or a safe refuge, a safe place in the United States, who are being detained or put into jail for crossing the border. So the groups are fighting side by side. And we could just do a pause and think about your history classes from the past, knowing that Japanese Americans and Japanese people were detained or unlawfully put into camps and prisons during World War II, known as Japanese incarceration or internment. And we see here, Black Lives Matter, we have groups from all over the racial and ethnic spectrum who are fighting alongside Black people for basic, fundamental civil rights, liberties, and freedom. White silence equals compliance, meaning as a white person, it is a responsibility. And we think of the term anti-racist, to stand up for and support all those who are being oppressed. And if we don't, we are complying, we are going along with the system that that has been around for many, many years, where whiteness is seen as the standard. And again here, hate is a virus, stop Asian hate. This was also happening during the COVID pandemic, and you can see that we again have people across racial and ethnic lines saying, stop the violence against the Asian community. So, interethnic solidarity, please write this down in the vocab section, is the idea that people across ethnic groups and racial groups can come together to support each other and fight for the same causes. And I'm really excited about this activity that you're all going to do, because I wanted to show you that even though there's so much evil and so much sadness that exists in this world, there's also so much beauty. And I hope that's what you get out of the last part of class today. So you're going to do a Agents of Change poster activity. I'm going to explain it to you, and I'm hoping the sub does as well. So underneath your desk, there is a folder. And in that folder, there is going to be a yellow reading. Each person gets one copy of the yellow reading. Then each person gets the group gets one handout. So let me say that again. Each person gets one copy of the yellow reading, and the group gets one pink handout. When you're done, put the folder underneath the desk, and I'll collect it on next week. All right? Then what you're going to do is the task manager, and I'll give you those directions in a second, is going to read the directions on the document. Essentially, you're going to read the document and fill out the chart. Okay? You have to fill out the chart, and when you're finished filling out the chart, you will take poster paper, which is in the front of the room by the computer, and markers, which are where they normally are, and create a poster. I'm hoping you have 25 minutes today. I'm not exactly sure how much time you'll end up having, but know you'll have about 10 to 15 minutes on Wednesday to finish. Maybe more depending on time. Okay, so just so we know, the role cards are also underneath your desk. These roles should be different than last time. Task manager is the middle group member, resource manager, youngest group, communications manager, oldest group member. And you can kind of see here the directions. Task manager will read the directions, resource manager gets all the supplies, and communications manager does the writing. And then you can see there's part of the poster assigned. So the communications manager does all the writing on the document, on the organizer, but you all take turns writing on the poster, and you'll see which part of the poster you're all assigned to do. Okay? Again, I'm hoping that this is on the board so you can see it. Take a little break after this. I told the sub to give you about a 3-minute stretch break and then come back in and you can get started on this. Have a great time. Have a wonderful weekend. Hope you didn't miss me too much. Talk to you later. Bye.